Hello, this is Frank Falvey with Frank Presents, and it is my honor and privilege today to welcome the Reverend Dr. Cliff Winters. Welcome to the program, Cliff.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real honor.
Cliff is with the New England Chapel, which is formerly Fico's Bowling Alley.
Absolutely.
But Cliff, where did you grow up?
So I'm not originally from here. I'm from the South. You can't hear it in my inflection anymore because I grew up on television. So I learned to talk like the people on the TV did. But yeah, I'm from Richmond, Virginia, born and raised. I went to Virginia Commonwealth University. But very soon thereafter, I moved up to New England. And off and on, I've been in New England pretty much since then. So I've gotten my feet wet, so to speak.
Married?
Not married.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, not affiliated. No.
And where did you get your degrees from?
Yeah, so when I graduated college, like a lot of college people, I still didn't know what I wanted to do, and so I went to I went to live with my parents for a couple months, and I was like, I have to get out of here. So I just started to think, hey, what might be a nice thing to do? Well, I grew up at Union Theological Seminary. My father was a seminarian, and he went there for his doctorate. And I thought, maybe seminary is the thing I should do. I've always been a person of faith, but I never really understood it perfectly well. And so I thought, well, this might be my opportunity, and it'll get me out of the house. So I had heard of Gordon Conwell, which is up on the North Shore. Mm-hmm. It's in Hamilton, Wyndham area on the North Shore. And I had heard of them. I sent in an application 2 weeks before classes started. I sent in my application. 1 week before classes started, I got my acceptance. And then so I bought a car, my first car, and I drove all the way from, at that point, Ohio for the first time to New England. I got in about 4 a.m. I had a roommate at that time, a man named Mike Laird, who happens to be one of my co-pastors right now at New England Chapel. He's actually the head pastor, so that was a fortuitous meeting. And that morning, I had a competency exam in Greek, and I did not pass by quite a lot. So I was still covered in grease because my car had broken down. It was an absolute piece of garbage. So yeah, that was a great sort of first experience of New England. And I can remember when I got in, Mike was asleep, of course, and he woke up and he was like, "Do you have any idea what time it is?" I'm like, "No, I have a very good idea of what time it is. I've been awake for the whole time."
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Gordon Theological
Yes.
is a separate school from Gordon College.
Yes, they were together back in the previous century. And I can't remember when they split, but they did. But they still do an awful lot together. Mm-hmm. And so when I went to Gordon Conwell, I used to go to Gordon College's rec center to work out. And, we graduated at Gordon College. But yeah, they have different budgets, different finances. Yeah. But
is that where you got your doctorate degree also?
No, so I got my Master of Divinity, which is the degree that you want
Right.
if you want to be a pastor, right?
Right.
So I got my MDiv, and by the way, can we agree that the title Master of Divinity is maybe the most infelicitous title for a degree
Maybe.
ever? But yeah, so I got my MDiv at Gordon Conwell in 2003, and then I moved away to go start working at churches back down in West Virginia. So I did that for several years.
Not Buchanan.
Not Buchanan, but I know Buchanan. Do you know Buchanan?
Yeah, West Virginia Wesleyan, United Methodist School.
Absolutely. Yeah, there are a lot of good schools in West Virginia. So I actually worked at Marshall University.
Uh-huh.
for a time. Loved that. We Are Marshall, the movie. If you've ever seen We Are Marshall with
Right.
Matthew McConaughey, I was in that movie. You have to have bionic vision to see me, but I was in it. So I worked in church for several years, and then I sort of felt the call, the inclination to go on for more study. The thing is one day I was getting ready for I was a youth pastor at the time. I was getting ready for a talk on the Lord's Prayer, and I realized something in the Lord's Prayer that hadn't been seen before, which is unusual because the Lord's Prayer has been studied quite a lot in the history of the
Quite a
church.
bit.
So
Quite a bit.
so the issue is why does it say right at the end of the Lord's Prayer, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors, and lead us not into temptation.
But deliver us from evil.
From evil.
Oh, thy is the kingdom,
Power.
power, and the glory forever and ever.
Amen.
So if you're in a Roman Catholic church, all of a sudden they stop and you're still going.
Yeah. You just cough and then they'll pretend like you're. Yeah. So the question is why does the Lord's Prayer ask that God not lead us into temptation? Because the book of James says that God never tempts anyone. Why would we be praying against something that never happens? Well, as it turns out, that ancient Greek, which the New Testament was written in, didn't have the same rules about uppercase and lowercase that we do, right? And so they didn't, like when a word was a proper noun, it wasn't capitalized. You have to know from context whether it is or not. Well, it turns out that word temptation should be capitalized. He's talking about a place called temptation. Lead us not into temptation. And actually the verb lead us in is only ever used of actual locations, not of states.
Where would a location be that's called temptation?
So there's this story in both Exodus and Numbers, Exodus 17 and Numbers 20, where Moses struck the rock. And where Moses struck the rock and the water flowed from the
Yes.
rock. So the people had been complaining at Massah and Meribah. It's called both of those names, Massah and Meribah. And you can read all this, by the way. I wrote the dictionary entry for this in the Lexham Bible Dictionary. So, so the town was named, or the place was named Massah, which in Hebrew means temptation, or Temptationville, if you will. And so it was at the place called Temptation where Israel tempted God, not where God tempted Israel. And so the request is that we not tempt you, God, that we not stand apart from you, that we not reject you, that we trust in your love and your provision. And so it changes the meaning of the Lord's Prayer, really, that part, pretty completely. It turns it right on its head.
It does.
Yeah. So when I found that, I knew that I needed to do something with that. And so I was originally thinking that I would, research that, write my dissertation on that. But as you know, I went on to study other harder things.
But let me stop you there.
Yeah.
What is your feeling about forgive us our debts as opposed to forgive us our sins?
Yeah, or trespasses. So there's this idea of semantic fields, right? And so a semantic field is, if you picture a circle, the standard dictionary entries for any word lie right in the middle of that, like a bullseye, right? And so the standard semantic meanings of words lie right in the middle. But there's fuzziness, and so you can go further out and further out and further out. And this explains actually some of the differences between the Gospels, is that there's semantic fuzziness enough that the idea of debts and trespasses and sins sort of overlap. You see this in, say, the Sermon on the Mount where Jesus says, blessed are the poor in spirit. But in Luke, he says, blessed are the poor. And not in spirit. He just says, blessed are the poor. What seems to be happening is that he's talking about when he's talking about blessed are the poor, he's absolutely in Luke. He's absolutely talking about the actual poor. But there's an assumption that people who are poor, who have not much in the way of means in this world, can also be poor of spirit, that they can be downtrodden, that they can, they have to struggle with more than the general population has to struggle with. And so when he says poor, that idea of poverty includes the idea of spiritual poverty as well, because it's within that semantic field. The same thing with debts and trespasses.
But I do see differences culturally in America when I grew up between debts. I owe someone something.
Yes.
Okay. And trespasses, I said something, I went on someone's land, I wasn't supposed to do this. In the word sin,
Yeah.
which means that somehow I've broken the rules of God. Sin is a much more serious or heartfelt observance. So you go to communion when you go to communion, and so of the words, right?
Yeah.
Isn't culturally sin closer today, or is it? Maybe back then, sin never had the meaning it has today.
Yeah. So the actual word hamartia, that's the Greek word that means sin. It means roughly missing the mark. And so you were trying, like the bullseye again, right? This is a different metaphor, but we'll use it. It's like you were trying to hit the middle, but you missed, and you actually hit outside the field, right? And so the encouragement there, and the word sin is and should be encouraging in a way, is that, hey, give it another go.
Hey, what?
Give it another go. Give it another try, right? Hey, you messed up, but hey, you get another chance. And this is something that I do a lot in my church, is try to help people understand what God's trying to do in the language that he's using. And this is a way in which I think uniting trespass and debt is actually a really good idea, which, by the way, the Bible does. In that when I trespass against somebody or I sin against somebody, it may not come to mind immediately that I need to do something for them in order to make up for that. But when I owe somebody something, my immediate thought is, I owe them something. I need to give them something. And so I think one of the subtexts here is that when I've harmed somebody, I owe them a debt. The word actually is in Greek, ophilos, is that I have a debt to them, is that I need to fix this relationship. The thing that I broke, I need to try and fix or ameliorate or ask for forgiveness for. I need to try to restore that relationship and try to make up for what I've done.
I'll ask you one more deep theological question, and then we'll move on,
All right.
okay? Jesus died,
Yes.
and he went to hell. For 3 days, he was physically or actually in hell.
Some
As-
traditions teach that. And the Bible never actually says that exact thing. What it says, and I want to say it's in Peter, but I honestly can't remember. It was in Peter. It was 1st or 2nd Peter. It says that he went down to the souls to preach to the souls in Tartarus, which is not the same thing as hell. The word for hell in the Bible is Gehenna. And it wouldn't make sense for Jesus to go to Gehenna because the word Gehenna is a transliteration of the phrase Valley of Hinnom. Ge means valley, and Henna or Hinnom, Valley of Hinnom. And if you're wondering where the Valley of Hinnom is, I'm going to try to do this backwards for those watching on TV. All right, so roughly the hill that Jerusalem is on, it's actually on 2 different hills. It's on Mount Moriah, and it's on Mount Zion. And there's a small valley in between them called the Tyropoeon Valley. Otherwise, there's a big U that surrounds the valley, right? And so on this side, if you're watching on TV, on this side is the Kidron Valley. And then on the southern side and the western side is the Hinnom Valley. And so if you're standing on Mount Zion, you can throw a rock into hell. Hell means the Valley of Hinnom. So why does it mean the Valley of Hinnom? I also wrote the dictionary entry for this Lexham Bible Dictionary if you ever get a chance. So when Peter says that that Jesus went to preach to the souls in Tartarus, it's not entirely clear what that means. But if he did so, in whatever sense that he did so with authority, right? Because he's preaching. So he had authority the moment, forever, right? He's eternally pre-existent. But from the moment his feet hit earth, he was Lord of the earth, right? So he wasn't in a disadvantageous position. This is another sort of idea that's in the popular culture that isn't biblically accurate. God has authority over hell. Nobody else has authority in hell. God has authority over everything. And all of creation knows that, including heaven and hell. The only part that doesn't know that is the part that we're in, right? We're in the in-between place where it's confusing what life is actually like and who has actual authority and who's actually out for our good and who isn't. There's the idea in Peter, and Peter's alone in this, that Christ used those moments to present the gospel first to the heavenlies. And you do see Christ doing things in the heavenly places in the book of Revelation quite a lot. There's a really great book, The Unseen Realm. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. I'm reading it right now. It's a game changer if you want to understand how first century Jewish people understood what reality was. They didn't see this as ultimate reality, this stuff, us. They saw where God dwelt as ultimate reality, because God is ultimate reality. And so we are only a shading, we are only a reflection, as in a mirror, right, to quote St. Paul. We're only a reflection of that, and not a very good reflection of that either. And so you'll get things like the earthly temple, which is a reflection of God's heavenly dwelling. You get us. We are earthly reflections of God in heaven. We were made in his image and his likeness, says Genesis chapter 1. Right, and so we're reflections of God. And so we see a lot of reflections of God in this life. But we wait and long for the time when we can see the real God and reality face to face.
You mentioned the book of Revelation.
Yes.
And you have written a book on that an academic book.
An academic book. I don't remember. I don't recommend buying it. It costs $271, which is, I don't see any of that money, so don't feel like you need to. Although if you're a library, please do. Yeah, it's called Argument is War.
It's called what?
Argument is War.
Argument is War.
So in the field of linguistics, especially cognitive linguistics, what we do is, go ahead.
Let me ask this first.
Sure.
Okay. The book of Revelation is the last book in the Bible, and I believe it was the last book that was accepted as part of the Bible.
Yeah, and some people still haven't accepted it.
Huh?
Some groups still haven't accepted it as part of the Bible.
Right.
Yeah.
And at the time there was persecution, beginning persecution of Christians. So it said that a lot of what is written in allegorically, so that you're not persecuted, but you understand what's written. Have I summarized?
Yeah, Leonard Thompson and Adela Yarbrough Collins have written extensively on this, that there were some pockets of persecution in the first century, but there wasn't any empire-wide persecution. And so, although the book seems to be talking primarily about persecution, that's not actually the main topic. It did happen. We know that a fellow named Antipas was killed for his faith, but he seems to be the exception. Why then are so many people dying in the book is their research question. And their answer seems to be partly that they are helping people who feel the weight of being other. right? And so they live in a Roman culture as practicing either Christians or Jews. My argument would be Jews. I think that the book was written to Jewish people. But they were living a different faith and a different life than the Romans around them. And they felt the pressure of that, and they felt afraid because of their otherness. They felt precarious, right? Because the government didn't like them very much sometimes. And so John was writing to help allay their fears. I completely disagree with that. I think that they're right that there wasn't that much persecution in the first century, at least to the point of death. There certainly was persecution. But I have a different explanation entirely for the violence in Revelation, and that's what makes the book exciting.
So what is your point of the book that you wrote?
Yeah, so yeah, go ahead.
No, so what's your point in the book that you wrote?
Yeah, so there is a metaphor, and you're absolutely right that the book is allegorical. There's a metaphor that gets used quite a lot, especially in the New Testament, sometimes in the Old Testament, but mostly in the New Testament, called restoration is death. And in the metaphor, restoration is death, when the writer is talking about what seems to be talking about death, he's actually talking about restoration or salvation. And so St. Paul says things like, I have been crucified with Christ. I have been crucified with Christ. Perfect tense. Past perfect tense. I have been crucified with Christ, and now I no longer live. Present tense. I'm not alive. But Christ lives in me. Now, we know that he's not speaking about that literally because he's writing this letter. And the recipients of this letter don't think that a corpse wrote Ephesians, right? And so when he's saying, I have been crucified with Christ, he's talking about a particular kind of death that caused him to live with Christ. That was his salvation. And so that's how I know that this metaphor exists. Restoration is death. When it seems to be talking about death, what it's really talking about is restoration or salvation. So in the New Testament, when he talks about being buried with Christ in Romans 6, or being crucified with Christ in Galatians, I think it was Galatians 2, those are literary metaphors where he says baldly, I've been crucified, or I've been buried, or I'm dead in Christ, whatever. But Revelation is a visionary book, right? It doesn't say things propositionally. It shows things visually, right? And so instead of using the metaphor in terms of its language, it uses the metaphor in vision. And so instead of talking about people dying, it shows people dying. And my argument in my book, Argument is War, is that they're not really dying, they're being saved. That the book of Revelation is so mind-bendingly violent because it is a hugely positive book. It believes that God is bringing people in droves to himself and not killing people in droves, which is, you have to admit, a much better reading. And so the book Argument is War is just me proving that the metaphor is there using cognitive linguistics.
You are anticipating and hoping to write a more general book.
Readable, more readable book.
Readable book.
Yeah, yeah.
What would be the nature of it?
So the last book, of course, I was arguing that the general metaphor Argument is War is there in the book, and I think I proved that. I showed that. But this time, I'm doing much more work on a much more niche metaphor, which is this restoration is death, because I want to demonstrate to scholars, but also to lay people, that this is not a scary book. There are two problems that have always accompanied the study of the book of Revelation. One, it is incredibly hard to read. Most scholars take it to be the hardest book in the Bible, certainly in the New Testament, maybe in all the Bible. And so Dionysius, 3rd century bishop of Rome, wrote this long letter about how some people in the church wanted to get rid of the book of Revelation for that reason, right? Mm-hmm. This is during the canonical period when they're figuring out what books go in the Bible and what don't. And he was like, well, I kind of want to kick it out because I don't understand it, but a lot of the church loves it, and so we're going to keep it in. But he just uses every Greek word you have ever heard that means I don't get it. I don't understand it. It's beyond my recognition, beyond my cognition. My imagination can't encompass it, all those things. Right. So that's one of the historical problems with the Book of Revelation. The other problem, which is a lot more serious, is that it is easily the most violent book in the Bible, even compared to like the violent books of the Old Testament, Joshua, Judges, etc. Why is that? And so the church has always struggled with those two issues. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to resolve both of those issues at once. I'm trying to clarify what it's talking about so that we understand it by showing how it's using a metaphor. And it's in fact telling us a story that we already know, which is the gospel. And we see that because God isn't killing people in the book. He's saving people in the book. And so whenever you see somebody die in Revelation, celebrate, because that means they've been saved. And so you'll see things like, the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and they're supposed to be these big, scary, terrible people. They're actually Jesus, right? Jesus is the four horsemen of the apocalypse. And so when he, quote unquote, kills a quarter of the Earth's population, he's saving a quarter of the Earth's population. It's a good thing. And so these people who have been sealed during the seals, the four horsemen of the apocalypse, show up during the seven seals. They're the first four of the seven seals. These people show up in heaven at the end of the seals, praising Jesus for having saved them. Like, why are you praising Jesus? He just killed you because death means salvation in the Book of Revelation. So this is the big aha moment that I'm hoping people grasp.
All right. You're with the New England Chapel.
Yeah.
The New England Chapel, people might not realize, has been in Franklin for years.
Yes.
It is an old, really established, and it began meeting, I believe, in the old Horace Mann Middle School.
Yep. And actually before that, we met in Acapulco's.
You met where?
In Acapulco's, the Mexican restaurant.
Really?
Yeah, for the very earliest days, we met in Acapulco's.
Which would be the one downtown.
The one downtown, before they moved, yeah.
Yeah, before they moved.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things about Franklin is government buildings. Like, I'm a member of the Franklin United Methodist Church.
Good
that
church.
started meeting in 18-something in the town hall next door to where the church is.
Sure.
The Roman Catholic Church started meeting, I believe, in that still old town hall. That a lot of churches in Franklin have a history of beginning meeting in public space.
Yes.
Which I find more than fascinating and historic. And your founder stayed for a number of years, but then received a call to do something else.
Yes.
How is he, and what is he doing now? Do you have any idea?
Yes, he is. He works with business people to help get their teams working well together. So he just works by contract and works with individuals to help people and teams work to their best ability. So very capable, sort of very emotionally intelligent leader. I'm talking about Chris Mitchell, who founded the church. And so he's doing a lot of what he did at the church, but he's doing it at the individual level now.
And not at a non-faith level.
At a non-faith level, but of course he always carries his faith with him.
Right.
I mean, I think that's the
Right.
thing. It's like whatever we do, we carry God with us. I would hope. Maybe not when I drive, but otherwise God's with me. So I did see him recently. He has a glorious beard now. I feel like he's copying me. His is still brown though, so I don't know how I feel
So
about
tell me a little about the onward movement of New England Chapel and bring us up to date as to what the New England Chapel is doing.
Yeah, so for years we met in a facility down off of Grove Street, and it was a great facility, but it wasn't near anything, right? And so right when COVID hit, we actually started meeting at Franklin Middle School again for a while. We went back to the schools for a while because we were looking for a property of our own. And, FICO's had been there, FICO's Bolodrome, which is known and loved, of course, in this town and by us. And and we particularly love Mr. Fico. He really made it possible for us to purchase that land, and if it hadn't been for him, heaven knows where we would be. So we're grateful to him and that family. Of course, he passed. But having moved into Ficos, people still call us Ficos. Like they don't call us New England Chapel sometimes. They'll call us Ficos, which we love, right? Because everybody who comes there, they come already in a good mood,
Yeah.
right? Because I remember coming here, and you could still tell where the lanes were, and not just that, but we still have some of the lanes. We turned some of the lanes into tables, and we turned them into workspaces, and into a bar and the cafe, and a couple bars in the cafe. And so it has been such a tremendous blessing. And you talk about being in the community. We are so much more a part of the community now. And, you know, I volunteer with the Franklin Bellingham Rail Trail. All of us who work at that church have our volunteer places out in the community because, like, Heather Kemsky does a lot with the YMCA, the Hockomock YMCA. She volunteers with them a lot. And so we all have our own thing because we think it's important to be a part of the community and to help the community grow. You know, I don't even use the rail trail that much, but the people at my church do. And when I found that out and that they could use some help, I signed up because we want to do what's helpful.
Where does the rail trail run from now?
So right now it's running from Grove Street, right near where we used to have our church. Is that a coincidence? Right now the trailhead is at Grove, and it runs past Pleasant and all those other streets. And it actually runs 22 miles with a couple dog legs in there, but it runs 22 miles to the Connecticut border. So it's a nice long trail if you want to bike, if you want to hike, run, etc. You can go quite a distance. We right now are responsible. We have taken on the responsibility of helping to manage just the Franklin Bellingham section. And of course, when I say manage, we aren't DCR. We love DCR. We are grateful for them. They're the ones who actually do the work, but we are the ones who help provide the information about what the trail needs. We intercede for the trail, and we're just sort of an investigatory branch of the DCI.
The state legislature gave you some money to build a tunnel.
Yes, that bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was done fairly recently, several years ago now, but fairly recently. And that was such a big deal because prior to that, you had to come up and then cross a road that didn't have a crossing, right? It was, and then go back down to the trail. And that was such a big deal for us, for the usability of the trail, for the safety of the trail, for the accessibility of the trail. One of the things that we take on as part of our mission is not just that people use it and that it's nice and flat and there aren't like pools of water, but also so that people with disabilities can use it. And so we are always interested to hear from people with various disabilities about how the surface is usable. Here's how the surface is usable. Here's something that we're trying to do right now. I'll say this as a heavy person myself, and maybe I'm a little bit older. Maybe I don't want to walk all the way down and walk all the way back without a rest, right? And so one of the primary thing, we do surveys of the population at various times. The primary thing that we got in terms of feedback about what people want for the SNET Trail is benches. People need a place to rest, right? And people want a place to sit and read their book and to enjoy nature. It's fine to go walking, but you don't want to have to sit down in dirt, when you want to take a break. And so we're talking with DCR, and we're talking with other state and local bodies about putting in 4 benches, and it looks like that's probably going to happen within the next 2 years. It may be that we find some grant help, but if we can't find it, we as an organization are willing to put up the money ourselves because we think it's important. We think it's important that this trail is usable by everybody, by the widest possible group of people.
Well, let me ask a couple of practical questions,
Sure.
since I'm on the older side too. Near the roads or at different places on the trail, can you step off and go into some place that has a restroom, like a Dunkin' Donuts or a cafe? Are there places that tend to
They make themselves
you can
available for
take?
that? There really isn't. Until you get to, well, until you get into Bellingham, um, there really isn't on our side. And that is an interesting idea. That's a good point. I'm going to have to write that down. Thanks, Frank.
Someone,
Yeah, give us some
someone,
ideas.
someone that's male my age, that's one of the first things that crossed my mind.
You know, it's funny because, without using names, I have a good friend who, has to go maybe more often than I do whenever we go golfing, say, the need comes up. And he lives right near the trailhead. So that I should have thought of that. That is great feedback. Thank you for that.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Yeah.
Now, the trail, you say, I had the representative from Bellingham or somewhere, and he was mentioning something about Webster or Douglas, that there was something there that was on the trail, but they wanted some money to improve.
It's probably the dog leg where you have to jump off and walk along a street for a while and then cross a bridge, and so that we want to connect out on that end. But that is a little bit beyond our
Right.
but we're concerned about it, and we want to lend our help to that as well. Here's the issue, though, Frank, is we need more volunteer help. All of us who work with the Franklin Bellingham Rail Trail, we're all volunteers. None of us gets paid for it. We just do it because people love it. I can tell you, as a person who manages the counter, we have a counter on the trail. I can tell you that 70,000 people use it every year.
70,000.
70,000, and that's just the Grove Street trailhead. That doesn't count anything past that. So potentially hundreds of thousands of people use that trail, and so it is a huge outlet for people to get outdoors, to be out in nature, to be around the trees and the birds and the healthy air. And so we need more volunteer help. So every second Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m., you probably know this, we meet in this very building at Franklin TV and Radio. We have a meeting here, and we could really use more help. So if any of your viewers are out there thinking they might want to get involved in the community in a way, we'd love to have their help.
But let me ask this. Would it be more to your advantage to some Saturday or Sunday or something, try to have people that have never walked the trail or have and think they would like to be volunteers meet at the beginning of the trailhead,
Yep.
have that meeting, both Alan Earls and Steve Sherlock give you publicity.
Yes. And they have. They're great guys. We're so
Right.
grateful for them.
Right. So if they, and maybe, your website and other stuff, and instead of actually coming here first, would you draw more people if you had some sort of meeting at the trailhead to encourage people to be volunteers, or at least to begin exploring or talk about the trail where you could actually walk some of it?
Yeah, absolutely. We have done that in the past. We've had monthly trail walks. The reason that the trail walks sort of went away was we need more volunteer help to run the thing. So you get it. But we did just have in May a large 5K race, which was a fundraiser for us. It was helped. That was actually put on by ourselves because it was a fundraiser for us, but by the Tri-Valley Front Runners, which is the largest local running group in the area. And so hundreds of people came out. We were able to share what our needs were at that place. I think that there's an interest in helping, but often people aren't clear on what that exactly entails. All we're really asking is for them to come to a once a month meeting and to own something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like take responsibility for some small thing. It doesn't have to be big. It's just maintaining the website, or we need help there. Any technology thing, marketing. We could use a lot of help with our marketing. Your idea was an excellent one. We could use that level of help.
All right, let me stop a minute.
Yeah.
In Franklin, the beginning of the trail, to me, there doesn't seem any way to extend in Franklin the other way.
Yes. Well, there is a way, and it's coming. So I don't know when exactly it's coming. I can't promise the date. But in November, this past November, Franklin Town Council voted to appropriate money to the extension of the rail trail into the heart of Franklin. And so what this will mean is, when it's done, that you can have a great time downtown, and then you can walk with your family down out into the woods, go have a picnic, come back. People can bike all the way from Bellingham or even Rhode Island, Connecticut.
Really?
Can bike right into Franklin, have a great time, eat at the Rome, grab a coffee at Birchwood, etc., and then hop right back on the trail and head back home. So that is coming. So that has been voted up, and the money has already been allocated. So it's already been earmarked. So we are right now working with wonderful and beautiful CSX, whom we love, who have agreed to, at least in theory, to sell the property to the state. And so we're moving ahead with that. It is going to have to move slowly, though. There's a lot of work to do between now and a walkable trail. We have to do a lot of studies to make sure we're not harming nature, because we are 100% pro-nature. We need to make sure that it's safe. We need to make sure how much it's going to cost, so that we don't have any cost overruns. And so there's a lot of, I'll say, a lot of great thinkers who are working on this. I'll point to especially Kobe Frangillo, who is one of our former presidents. He's the former president of the Franklin Bellingham Rail Trail Committee. He's doing a lot of work on that. We have a lot of advocates. Jake Auchincloss knows about the trail and is promoting it. Jeff Roy knows about it and promoting it. We are actually named in the 5-year plan for Franklin. We're named in several points in several places in that 5-year plan to help drive commerce in Franklin, and also to promote outdoorsmanship.
Well, Cliff, let me change the subject
Yeah.
to something really wild and different, but has been bothering me for 3 years.
Yes.
And that's the war between, and I call it a war because Netanyahu calls it a war, between Israel and the Hamas. But the humanitarian crisis is always the civilians. I may be wrong, but I think in every war, more civilians die than combatants. And in particular, in this instance, man, the children, the women, the men, it now seems to have reached the point that we're going to hear about starvation, which has taken all this time and really, just wage. I don't know what's worse than starvation. I mean, as just trying to deal with it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts as a Christian? I mean, how should Christians be looking at what's happening?
Well, I want to say to begin with, I hate war. As a Christian, I'm not supposed to hate very many things, but I hate war, and I think Jesus does too. Here's the thing: I am not a politician, so I don't have any solutions, which is super frustrating. I mean that's it, right? Is that we're watching the news and we all wonder what we can do. Here's how I approach it. I'm not a political person. I don't talk politics. I'm a big believer in separation of church and state, and that goes both ways. I don't want the state messing with my religion, and I don't want my religion messing with the state. But I think one of the illnesses in America right now is that we are in a place where there are some people who can only see the world through a political lens. They only see Democrat versus Republican, liberal versus conservative, this person versus that person. And I think it's not just here. I think it's this hyper politicization is spreading throughout the world, and I think you kind of see that in the Middle East as well. I think that there is a different way, and here I'm using my work in Revelation. I think there's a different way to see the world. John's problem with Rome, the book was written against Rome, right? That Rome was trying to pull Israel away from their God, right? And John really objected to that because it's through God that we're saved, right? And so he was trying to counteract this influence of this pagan political power. And his argument was that, and I'm sorry to say it, all politics is pagan, in the sense that God doesn't work through political structures primarily. He works through people.
He doesn't work at all through political structures?
I am here using Revelation. The beast is a political entity, and the beast represents all politics. This person, the writer of the book of Revelation, suggests approaching the world not through a political lens, which pulls you into a power struggle that you will never win, but instead recommends interacting with other people in another way, and that way is love. That we win people's hearts and minds when we do the loving thing, even when other people aren't responding that way. And so I think the way John would respond in this situation is to look at what happened on October 10th and say to Hamas, that wasn't the loving thing. If you're trying to win hearts and minds, you have just destroyed your own reputation.
Yeah.
Let me finish. Let me finish.
Go ahead.
But I think he would also come to the state of Israel and to Benjamin Netanyahu and say, look what you're doing to the kids in Gaza. That is not the loving thing. You are destroying your witness. This should never have happened, right? And we're in a place where we have to choose, where we feel like we have to choose sides. What if there isn't a good side? There doesn't have to be. In a war, it's assumed that there's a good guy and a bad guy. This is the problem with politics, is that there are a lot of assumptions made, and one of them is that whatever side we're on is the good side. What if there really isn't a good side? I gotta say, holding up a mirror to what people are doing on both sides is the job of all people of good conscience. And this is one of the reasons that I love the press. I'm a huge fan of the press. I actually give my money to NPR, give my money to PBS, maybe not a lot. I'm a pastor and I don't make a whole lot of money. But I do get, because I think that the press is absolutely the essential piece of a free and open society. And so I love it that you are seeing these things on the news and you are troubled by them. They are doing what they're supposed to be doing, holding up a mirror. And so I think if we're going to do anything ourselves as individuals in America, I think it is to support our press institutions. That is the best thing that we can do. Free and open press who will go to those places, put their lives on the line to go to those places, and some of the press have died in Gaza. Mm-hmm. Is to have a free and open press who will go to those places and tell us what's happening so that we can respond in the way that we're meant to respond, in a moral way. That's really what it is that ultimately we are all citizens of the world. I'm a citizen of the U.S. or I'm a citizen of Palestine or Israel or whatever. ultimately we're all brothers and sisters, and it's important that we are aware of what's happening overseas, and that we say what is moral and what is not. The random killing of civilians is not right, and it happened on both sides. That doesn't mean both sides are equally right or equally wrong. I'm just saying I think it's important for us to say what has happened and what is happening is ruining their testimony in the world, is ruining any good thing that they are trying to do in the world. And so I can't say that I'm on either side, and I won't.
Well, I'm not looking to be on sides.
Yeah.
I'm looking how could, first of all, let me say that your statement that the Hamas side and the government side are trying to do good things. No, they intentionally, I believe, were trying to do bad and evil things. Their intention,
Almost like they're beasts.
yeah, their intention was not to come
Good.
out as a good guy. The Hamas attack on the Israel was what I believe to precipitate a wider area war. And Netanyahu began by saying, I'm going to war. And the government has conducted a war that...
Poorly. I think you can say
poorly.
Poorly.
So here we have these people that have suffered, women, children,
Yeah.
men, all right? And now they've reached the point of starvation, right? Christianity is a huge, maybe complex society of people that follow Christ. We're a large number, and we're an individual number.
Yeah.
We speak as one, we speak as millions. How do we
So
today
I would definitely
aid,
recommend.
give
Go ahead.
aid to them?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend NGOs, non-governmental organizations. Like I say, I'm non-political, and I'm for a reason, for the Book of Revelations reason. I think that most of the best things that happen in the world happen because of human beings, and so whether that's supporting the Red Cross, which is trying to bring aid to that area, or other NGOs that are trying to bring aid to that area. The more that we support these sort of parapolitical organizations who don't have a dog in that fight, they just want to bring food to people who are starving, right? We can remain apolitical, which I think is important in this case, because we lose our own testimony if we become political. The whole other side isn't going to listen to anything that we say if we come out on one side or the other. And anyway, I don't want to be tainted, right, by one side or the other. But I think that NGOs are probably the best way forward. And those groups are always looking for funding. They're always looking for help. And I would push people in that way.
What's the question that I haven't asked you that you came here today and you just want to speak about?
Yeah. So definitely coming back to the Bible, because that's sort of my area of expertise. My PhD is in biblical studies. There's a hard thing in biblical studies in that it's called the hermeneutical circle.
The what?
The hermeneutical circle. The word hermeneutics just means how you interpret things. There's a thing called the hermeneutical circle where you have a piece of literature and you have a standard way of understanding that literature. And so we go to this reserve of the historical way that we've always approached literature, and we use that background to understand what we're reading, which feeds into the background, which feeds into the reading, which feeds into the background, which feeds into the reading, in this sort of ever-moving circle. The problem is, as an historian, that doesn't open any doors to new understanding. Cognitive linguistics, and I know it sounds boring, but it's hugely important right now, I think, especially for people who are involved in the study of history and literature. There is a new way to understand other human beings. There is a scientific way to understand other human beings. And you came into my office yesterday, right? And you saw the book sitting on
about thinking.
Yeah, The Way We Think by Gilles Fauconnier and Mark Turner, which is absolutely, go home and read it, everybody. It's absolutely amazing. And it explains in real terms how our thoughts actually happen. Like the machinations that cause new thoughts to come about. And so I used their book and my book to show, to prove that the writer of Revelation is talking about love and not murder, right? Which is a big change. It's a big aha moment. This is what we need in our conversations with one another. How to actually listen to one another. How do you actually listen to the book of Revelation and hear what it has to say? Because for 2,000 years, we have said the book is about anger, and it's about wrath, and it's about destruction, and it's about vengeance. And the writer says this is a book about love, because he loved us and gave himself for us. And I'm quoting chapter 1, verse 5 when I say that.
But as a historian, my question is, when did that change? And why did it change if you're thinking about the brain, right? I mean, at some point you're saying, Frank, at this point of time, we saw the author and the tradition says this.
Yeah.
And then we went over the other side of the river and no.
Yeah. Yeah, and that point is called the parting of the ways. It actually has a name in biblical studies. It is the very unfortunate point when in the history of the church, we decided that the Jewish people were no longer the people of God, and we kicked them out of the church that they founded. The earliest churches were Jewish churches, and then actually the word for church, ekklesia in Greek, originally meant synagogue.
The earliest churches were Coptic churches in Egypt.
No, the earliest churches was the church in Jerusalem. It was founded 40 days after the death and resurrection of Christ. They were Jewish.
Mary brought Jesus to Egypt right after the birth.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not saying that there aren't other testimonies in other places, but the church that we are heir to, the Ethiopic church is an important.
Is in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the Ethiopic tradition is an important tradition. I'm just saying that we aren't heirs to the Ethiopic tradition.
Cliff, how can people? Cliff Winters, the Reverend Dr. Cliff Winters, a pastor, one of the pastors.
Not the biggest pastor. I'm one of the smaller pieces on the board.
One of the working pastors.
That's it. That's her. Working stiff. Yep.
Working stiff. How can people reach you or the church, or do you have open houses, or how can people contact you or the church?
Well, they can certainly come by. We're at 300 East Central Street in Franklin. Our website is nechapel.org. That's letter N, letter E, chapel.org, or NewEnglandChapel.org. You can come by and see me. I'm almost always there. Come by and see us on a Sunday. Our meetings are at 10 a.m. on Sundays. You can also look me up or look us up through the Franklin Bellingham Rail Trail Committee website, which is franklinbellinghamrailtrail.org. So any number of ways. I'm sort of out there in the ether.
Well, I want to thank you, Cliff, for coming down and doing this interview.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't think it was what either one of us anticipated, but it really turned out to be quite an informative interview.
And listen, thank you for what you do. Like I say, the press is one of the most critical parts of any free society, so what you do is important.
Thank you.
This program was made possible by your Franklin friends and neighbors, good folks just like you. Thanks for supporting Franklin TV. And thanks for watching.